Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever had that weird feeling like someone was uh subtly nudging your decisions?
Shifting how you think, maybe?
Yeah,
And you couldn't quite pin down why.
exactly. Or feeling stuck, trapped almost, and you just don't see how you got there.
Yeah, that unsettling feeling. It's often tied to what we call dark psychology. Well, it's not your standard psychology.
Right.
This field really zeroes in on understanding the mind specifically for influence, manipulation, basically.
An invisible trap, the sources called it, because you don't even realize you're in it.
Precisely. And our guide through this tricky landscape today is the work stemming from Amy Brown's book, Dark Psychology, Secrets of Manipulation, based on the materials you shared.
Yeah, it really promises to pull back the curtain on those hidden techniques, doesn't it? The strategies used by all sorts of people.
Oh, absolutely. Politicians, sales experts, but also, crucially, people in our day-to-day lives. It's closer than we think.
So our mission for this deep dive is pretty clear then.
Yep. We want to dissect these techniques, really understand how they sort of hack your psychology, you could say.
And the big one, figure out how you can spot them and, protect yourself.
Because this isn't just movie stuff, is it? The sources are really clear on that.
Not at all. It's happening all around us. Office politics, relationships.
Social media is a huge one,
Yeah.
even families. And the real kicker is how often it just flies under the radar.
Which gives the people who master it this quiet kind of power.
It's almost like a silent war,
Mm.
where the weapons are words, emotions, understanding the mind.
And it's done so subtly.
Yep.
Cleverly.
Exactly. Insidious is a good word for it.
So the big question for you listening is, are you ready to actually see these secrets? Understand how someone might be trying to steer things without you realizing.
And most importantly, are you ready to learn how to build up your defenses? How to protect yourself?
All right, let's dive in.
Okay, so first things first. What is dark psychology, really? Let's define it.
It's not about healing, right? Not typical therapy stuff.
No, not at all. This field is fundamentally focused on, well, power, control, and influence. It delves into the parts of the mind, weaknesses, desires, fears.
The vulnerabilities.
Exactly. It looks for those vulnerability points specifically to manipulate them.
And the sources really stress why it's so effective and dangerous. It's because it works subtly.
Right. It changes how you think, how you feel, how you decide, but without you consciously noticing it, it slips past your defenses.
Targeting those weak spots we all have.
And you've probably encountered it, maybe without putting a name to it. Think about times someone seemed to be, like, playing with your emotions.
Or laying on a guilt trip. Playing on fears.
Yeah, exactly. That feeling that maybe your thoughts or decisions aren't entirely yours, that they're being steered, that's a classic sign.
And that key point from the material, it's all done hidden and cleverly. That's the scary part.
It really is. So, okay, how do they actually do it? What are the strategies? The sources lay out some core ones.
These aren't random, are they? They're specific techniques. One is called emotional mirroring.
Sounds subtle.
It is incredibly subtle. Emotional mirroring is basically when the manipulator mimics you, subtly copies your emotions, your gestures, body language, even how you talk.
Yeah, even your way of thinking sometimes. The goal isn't just to be friendly, though. It's deeper. It's to make your subconscious see them as like me.
Ah, creating that subconscious connection.
Exactly. It builds this unknown trust, a feeling of connection you can't quite explain. And that is where the manipulation often starts. Your guard is down because you just feel they get you.
Wow. Okay, that's tapping into something deep. What about using our basic instincts, like fear?
Ah, yes. Fear-based control. It's powerful because we're wired to avoid fear, right? Uncertainty, too.
Definitely.
So manipulators use words, ideas designed specifically to create that uncertainty and fear about something. They'll suggest something bad will happen if you don't do what they want.
What kind of threats?
Could be financial loss, or maybe social rejection, even hinting at an emotional breakdown for them or you. The sources mention these examples. It plants this seed of fear.
That makes you more likely to do what they want to avoid the bad thing?
Precisely. It pushes you in their direction.
Ugh, that sounds intense. And then there's one that seems really damaging. Gaslighting.
Gaslighting is particularly nasty
Yeah.
because it's designed to gradually distort your perception of reality itself.
How does that work?
The goal is to make you doubt yourself, your thoughts, your memories, your sanity even. They want you to feel like you're the one who's wrong, confused, or flawed.
And they are the ones who are right. Always.
Always. It creates this huge self-doubt and makes you dependent on them for reality.
Mm.
The sources mention those classic phrases.
Like you're misunderstanding things, or that's not how it happened.
Exactly. Or even, your memory's failing you. It directly attacks your confidence in your own mind.
Making someone doubt their own reality. That's a really cruel kind of trap. Okay, what about something maybe a bit more common? Guilt tripping.
Oh, guilt tripping is super common. We've probably all seen it or maybe even done it unintentionally sometimes, but manipulators use it strategically.
How so?
It's about making you feel that sense of guilt or obligation, making you feel responsible for their feelings or problems to force you to comply.
The sources had examples, right? Like,
Yeah, things like, well, if you don't help me, I'll be really upset. Or if you don't listen to me, I guess you just don't care about me. Stuff like that.
seems simple but effective.
Very. The sources call it subtle but very effective. It plays on our desire to be good, caring people.
Right. Okay, and the last one mentioned is often seen in really controlling situations. The isolation technique.
Yes, this one is serious. It's where a manipulator works to gradually cut their target off from their support system.
Friends, family, colleagues.
Anyone who might offer a different perspective or support, they might badmouth others, stir up conflict, or convince the victim that only the manipulator truly understands them.
So the victim feels alone.
Exactly. And when you feel alone, you become much more vulnerable, much more dependent on that one person. The sources specifically mention this in abusive relationships. It removes reality checks.
It's chilling hearing these laid out. And it's important to remember, like you said, this isn't just personal stuff.
No, the sources are clear. These tactics get used on a massive scale. Politics, big business deals, marketing, social media feeds are full of it.
The marketing example was interesting, using psychology in ads.
Totally. Like creating that fear of scarcity, limited time only, almost gone. That's not just info, it's playing on that fear response we talked about.
Making you afraid of missing out, pushing an impulse buy.
Exactly. It triggers that urgency.
Okay, so we get the what and the how, but why? Why are we as humans so susceptible to this stuff?
Well, fundamentally, it's because these tactics target our basic psychological makeup, our ingrained fears, our desires, our insecurities.
Things like wanting approval, fearing rejection.
Absolutely. Needing to feel safe, wanting to belong, we all have these vulnerability points. Manipulators are just skilled at spotting them and, well, pushing those buttons.
Which brings us to a really critical distinction the sources make. Persuasion versus manipulation. They can look similar, right?
They can, on the surface. But the intent behind them is worlds apart. This is crucial to understand.
Okay, so what's persuasion, according to the sources?
Persuasion is framed as an ethical skill. It's the art of convincing. It's about getting someone to agree with you, yes, but without pressure.
How does that work?
It uses a balance of logic and emotion, but respectfully. It's about guiding someone towards your idea by appealing to their understanding, their values, their actual needs. It's aiming for mutual agreement.
Right, so it's ethical influence, a dialogue. Manipulation, then.
Is the dark side. It's described as an unethical way to influence. It's not about guiding. It's about playing with emotions specifically to force compliance.
Bypassing their rational thought.
Totally.
Yeah.
Getting them to do something that might not be in their best interest or that they wouldn't choose freely. It's coercion dressed up as choice.
So a persuader looks for common ground, uses reason, genuine emotion. A manipulator plays games.
Plays games with feelings to get what they want, regardless of how it affects you. Understanding that difference, that intent, is absolutely vital for you, the listener.
It's like the first step in recognizing what's happening in an interaction.
Exactly. Because not every emotional plea is genuine, right? Some are just tactics.
Which leads us perfectly into maybe the most important part for everyone listening. How do you actually protect yourself? How do you build that mental shield the sources talk about?
Yeah, because it's easy to feel vulnerable. These tactics are subtle, and often, like the sources say, they come from people close to us. But there are concrete steps you can take.
And the first one, the foundation, according to the sources, self-awareness.
Absolutely. They call it the first and most important step. If you don't understand yourself, you're kind of an open book to manipulators.
Right.
They look for insecurities, fears, unmet needs. If you know your own emotional triggers, your usual reactions, your sensitive spots, it's like having a map of where they might try to attack.
So you recognize when someone's pushing your buttons.
Precisely. You know your buttons, so you feel it when they're pressed.
Building on that self-awareness, strengthening emotional boundaries.
This is huge, non-negotiable, really.
Yeah.
Manipulators want you to ignore your limits. They use guilt, obligation, whatever works, to make you act according to their agenda, not yours.
So learning to say no is key.
Absolutely key. Firmly. Maybe not aggressively, but clearly. It's about valuing your own space, your time, your energy, your autonomy.
Okay. And since manipulators often target emotions to bypass logic, critical thinking.
Yes. The sources really hammer this home. Emotions are powerful. They can sweep you away. That's why manipulators use them. Logic is your anchor.
So pause and analyze.
Exactly. When you feel pressured, confused, like something's off stop, ask yourself, is this actually true? Does this logically track? Or is this just designed to make me feel something, to trap me emotionally?
That simple step back can break the spell.
It really can. Just engaging the logical brain.
Assertiveness is also mentioned as a defense.
Yes. And specifically, assertiveness as stating your point firmly, but without aggression. Manipulators often feed on hesitation or perceived weakness.
So being confident helps.
Being confident, clear about your needs or position, making decisions without feeling pressured, it makes you a much less appealing target, harder to push around.
And it's not just about internal work, right? It's also about understanding the people around you.
That's right. Remember, manipulators are often embedded in our daily lives. Friends, colleagues, even family sometimes, the sources say. Focus on actions more than words.
Look for patterns, red flags.
Definitely. Does this person constantly put you down, lower your self-esteem? Do they rely on guilt trips? Do you consistently feel drained or confused after interacting with them? Those are major red flags.
Okay. And another piece is building yourself up internally, strengthening yourself mentally.
Yes, this is about boosting your self-respect, self-worth, and self-confidence. When you genuinely value yourself, know your worth, manipulators lose a lot of their power.
How does that work?
Well, they often target people seeking external validation or those who are easily influenced. If you know your own value, you're less susceptible to guilt trips or attacks designed to make you feel less than.
Makes sense. And finally, sometimes the simplest defense is distance.
It often is.
Right.
If someone is consistently using these tactics and just draining your mental health, creating distance might be the best, healthiest option. It's not always easy, especially with family or close colleagues, but
Sometimes necessary.
sometimes removing yourself from the source is the most effective shield you have.
Ultimately, the sources really urge you, the listener, to shift your mindset, to get out of the victim mindset.
Because dark psychology works best on those who don't understand it. The moment you recognize the tricks, see them for what they are.
You become stronger.
Exactly. You become mentally resilient, much harder to manipulate. That understanding is the protection.
So, wrapping up this deep dive, we've gone into this hidden world, uncovered some of its darker secrets and strategies, and hopefully armed you with tools for self-protection.
Think back now, maybe to those opening questions from the sources. Have you ever felt manipulated without realizing it at the time? Have you been on the receiving end of guilt trips or emotional blackmail or even gaslighting?
Recognizing those moments now, understanding the mechanics, that's power, right? It's not about controlling others, it's about self-control, building that mental shield.
And the sources really pose that final choice starkly, don't they? Do you want to risk being uh, a puppet in others' hands, basically, reacting to strings you can't even see?
Or do you want to recognize the power of your own mind and build a strong mental shield for yourself?
It's about reclaiming your agency.
Yeah. And it leaves us with a really potent thought to mull over in all our daily interactions. Where's that line? The line between acceptable influence and subtle, maybe even unintentional control. Something to definitely keep in mind.